My dad missed my graduation, not because he was sick, not because he was busy, not because of an emergency. He missed it because he was afraid of being seen with me. I did not know that at first. I only knew that when my name was called and the crowd stood to clap, the seat that should have held my father was empty. And that moment stayed with me longer than the applause, longer than the photos, longer than the diploma itself. My name is Emily Carter. I am 22 years old, and this is the story of how success can still feel like failure when the person you want there the most chooses not to show up. I was born in a small town in Ohio, the kind of place where everyone knows your last name and remembers your parents from high school. My life started with a sentence. Doctors spoke softly to my parents. "Your daughter has cerebral palsy." They explained it clinically. They talked about motor control, muscle stiffness, limitations. They spoke in probabilities and warnings. My mother, Linda, cried quietly. My father, Robert, nodded and asked questions about prognosis, about outcomes, about quality of life. I do not remember that day, but I lived with the weight of it every day after. Growing up with cerebral palsy meant I learned early that the world notices difference. I could walk, but slower. My right arm was weaker. My balance sometimes failed me when I was tired or nervous. Kids stared. Teachers spoke slower. Strangers offered help I did not ask for. Some were kind, some were awkward, some were cruel. But the hardest part was not how the world treated me. It was how my father reacted to the world seeing me. My mother never hid me. She brought me everywhere, proudly. Therapy sessions, grocery stores, school events. She corrected people when they spoke down to me. She taught me to speak for myself. My dad loved me, I know that now, but love can be complicated. He worked in corporate sales, a world of sharp suits, polished smiles, and perfect families. He cared deeply about how things looked, how they were perceived. When coworkers asked about his family, he would say, "My daughter is doing fine." When relatives asked about my condition, he would change the subject. He never came to physical therapy sessions. He said hospitals made him uncomfortable. He attended school events, but always stood near the back. He clapped quietly. He left early. When I was 10, I won a school writing contest. My essay was read aloud at an assembly. My mom cried when she heard it. My dad smiled briefly and said, "Good job." But later that night, I overheard him telling my mom that he wished I would not draw so much attention, that people would start expecting things from me. I did not know what that meant, but it stayed with me. In middle school, I learned to work harder than everyone else, not because I was smarter, but because I had to be organized ahead of time if I wanted to keep up. I practiced walking long hallways before the first day of school so I would not be late. I typed assignments because writing by hand hurt my arm. I hated asking for accommodations because it made me feel visible in a way I did not choose. My dad encouraged me to be realistic. He said things like, "Maybe community college would be easier," or "You don't need to push yourself so hard," or "There's no shame in a simple life." My mom encouraged me to dream. She said, "The world will limit you enough. You do not need to do it to yourself." When I was 17, I told my parents I wanted to apply to Ohio State University. My dad frowned immediately. He said the campus was huge. He said it would be difficult for me to get around. He said it would be stressful. He said people could be cruel. My mom asked what I wanted. I said I wanted independence. I wanted to live somewhere people did not know me as the girl with cerebral palsy, but just as Emily. I applied anyway. I got accepted with a partial scholarship. My mom screamed and hugged me. My dad was quiet. He said, "Congratulations," but then asked how I planned to manage daily life. Moving into the dorms was terrifying and freeing at the same time. I fell once in the hallway and cried in the bathroom afterward, not because I was hurt, but because I was embarrassed. My roommate helped me up without making it weird. She just said, "You okay?" And we moved on. Classes were hard, but I loved them. I studied communications. I loved writing and storytelling. I joined a student organization for disability advocacy, not because I wanted to center my life around my condition, but because I wanted to help change how people saw us. My dad visited campus once during my sophomore year. He complained about parking. He said the walk was long. He said he did not like the stairs. I did not ask what he meant by that. My mom visited every semester. She learned my routes, she memorized my schedule, she met my friends, she brought food. Graduation became the thing I looked forward to. When classes were hard, when therapy was exhausting, when I felt invisible, I imagined that moment, walking across the stage, earning something undeniable. I practiced for it months ahead. I practiced standing smoothly, walking steadily, turning carefully. I did not want help on that stage, not because I did not need it, but because I wanted that moment to be mine. The morning of graduation, my mom helped me into my cap and gown. She cried immediately. She told me she was proud of me. She said she always knew I would do this. I asked where my dad was. She hesitated, then said he was running late. Traffic was bad. The arena was packed. Families filled the seats, signs waved, names were called. My heart pounded the entire ceremony. As graduates stood one by one, I searched the crowd again and again for my dad. My phone buzzed once during the ceremony, a text from him saying, "Proud of you, sweetheart. Call you later." No explanation. When my name was announced, the applause started small, then grew. People stood. Some cheered. Someone yelled my name. I walked across the stage slowly, carefully. I did not fall. I did not stumble. I did not look down. I looked straight ahead and smiled for the camera. But inside, I felt hollow. After the ceremony, families rushed forward, hugging, laughing, crying. My mom held me tightly. I finally asked the question she had been avoiding. She told me the truth. She said my dad didn't come because he didn't want people staring. She said he was afraid attention would shift from my achievement to my disability. She said he thought it would be uncomfortable for everyone. I felt something break inside me that no amount of applause could fix. That night, a video of my walk across the stage appeared online. Someone had filmed the standing ovation, the smile on my face, the steadiness of my steps. By morning, it had gone viral. Messages poured in. Strangers called me inspiring, brave, strong. My dad did not call. The morning after my graduation changed everything. The morning after my graduation video went viral, I woke up to a phone that would not stop vibrating. Messages from people I had never met, comments from strangers, emails from news outlets asking for interviews, all because of a moment that should have been private. All because I walked across a stage the way I had practiced for months. I did not feel like a hero. I felt exposed. I sat on the edge of my bed, scrolling through messages. Some were kind, some were overwhelming, some made me uncomfortable. People called me an inspiration, but they did not know my name. They did not know my life. They did not know that the person whose approval I wanted most was still silent. My mom sat at the kitchen table drinking cold coffee, reading the same messages I was. She looked proud and worried at the same time. She asked if I was okay. I told her I did not know. That was the truth. I was proud of myself, but I was also grieving something I did not have a word for yet. Around noon, my phone finally rang. It was my dad. His name on the screen made my stomach twist. I almost did not answer, but I did. He said hello like nothing had happened. He said he had seen the video. He said it was everywhere. He said people at work had mentioned it. He said he was proud of me. I waited for more. I asked him why he did not come. There was a long pause on the line. Then he said he did not expect the moment to become public. He said he thought it would be small, quiet. He said he did not want the focus to be on the wrong thing. I asked him what the wrong thing was. He said people can be judgmental. He said the internet can be cruel. He said he was trying to protect me. I told him it did not feel like protection. I told him it felt like abandonment. He sighed and said I was being too emotional. He said I did not understand how the world works. That sentence hurt more than anything else he said, because the truth was, I understood the world better than he thought. I had lived in it, navigating stares and whispers and assumptions since childhood. I told him I understood perfectly how the world works. I just did not understand why my own father could not stand beside me in it. The call ended awkwardly. He said he loved me. I said okay, and hung up. I cried afterward, not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly in my room, like I had learned to do growing up. My mom knocked and sat beside me. She did not defend him, she did not excuse him. She just held my hand and said, "I'm sorry he made you feel this way." Later that day, a local news station called again, asking for an interview. My first instinct was to say no. I did not want to be reduced to a headline. But then I realized something. People were already telling my story without me. I decided if it was going to be told, I wanted to tell it myself. During the interview, they asked about my journey, my education, my challenges. I spoke honestly, without exaggeration, without pity. I talked about preparation, not inspiration. I talked about access, not bravery. Then they asked about my parents. My mom was sitting off camera. I talked about her support. Then they asked about my dad. I paused before answering and said, he loved me, but he struggled with visibility. The interviewer nodded slowly, like she understood exactly what that meant. The segment aired that evening. Messages doubled. Strangers praised my honesty. Others criticized my father. Some called him names. Some said I should forgive him, that he did his best. My dad did not call that night. Instead, the next morning, his boss called me. He said he wanted to congratulate me. He said the company was proud to be associated with such a story. He said my dad had not known how big this would become. That was when I realized something uncomfortable. My dad was not upset because he missed my graduation. He was upset because he missed controlling the narrative. The attention embarrassed him, not because of me, but because he was not part of the image. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was no longer trying to earn his approval. I was outgrowing it. Weeks passed. The attention slowly faded. I started applying for jobs. I received interview requests. Some companies mentioned the video, others focused on my skills. I chose a position at a nonprofit media organization that focused on community storytelling. It felt right. I moved into my first apartment. My dad helped financially, but kept his distance. We spoke occasionally, politely, like relatives, not like a parent and child. One evening, I received an email from a woman named Karen. She said she was the mother of a disabled teenager. She said watching my video helped her daughter believe she could have a future. She thanked me. I cried reading it because that was not something I had planned, but it mattered more than any viral moment. A month later, my dad invited me to lunch. It was awkward. He chose a quiet restaurant. He asked about my job. He talked about work. Finally, he said he had been thinking about graduation. He said maybe he had been wrong. He said he did not know how to handle the attention. I asked him why it mattered so much what people thought. He did not answer right away. Then he said, because the world is not kind and he did not want me hurt. I told him the world had already hurt me many times, and each time I survived. I told him what hurt most was feeling like he was ashamed of me. He looked down at the table and said he did not know how to be proud publicly of something he did not understand. I told him he did not need to understand my body, he just needed to stand next to me. We left that lunch without resolution, but something had shifted. He was no longer defensive, just quiet. Months later, my dad's company began struggling. A major client left. Revenue dropped, stress followed. He worked longer hours, his confidence shook. The same man who had always cared about appearances now faced uncertainty. He called me more often, not to talk about my disability, not about the video, but about fear. I listened because I had lived with fear my whole life. I told him fear does not disappear when you hide it. It disappears when you walk forward anyway, slowly, deliberately, like I had on that stage. He was silent for a long time. Then he said he wished he had walked beside me that day.
After my dad said he wished he had walked beside me that day, I did not feel relief the way I thought I would. Instead, I felt tired, like someone who has carried a heavy bag for years and finally put it down, only to realize their shoulders still ache. His words mattered, but they did not erase the past. They did not fill the empty seat. They did not stand in the photos that would never be retaken. What they did was open a door, not to forgiveness yet, but to honesty. And honesty can be uncomfortable. In the weeks that followed, my dad's business continued to struggle. He lost another client, then another. He stopped talking about appearances and started talking about survival. He asked questions about my job, my projects, my goals, not in a polite, distant way, but with real curiosity. For the first time, he asked how I handled stress. I almost laughed because stress had been my companion since childhood. I told him I prepare, I adapt, I accept help when I need it, and I stop apologizing for taking up space. He listened quietly. One evening, he admitted something he had never said out loud before. He told me that when I was born, he had been afraid, not of my disability, but of his own weakness. He said he worried he would fail me, that he would not know how to protect me in a world that could be cruel. So instead of learning, he avoided. Instead of standing up, he stepped back. He said every milestone I reached reminded him that I was stronger than he had expected, and that scared him because it meant his fear had been unnecessary. I told him fear does not make you weak. Avoiding love does. We sat in silence after that conversation. Not awkward, not tense, just quiet. A quiet that felt earned. Around that time, my work at the nonprofit began to grow. I started leading a project that focused on underrepresented voices, including people with disabilities. I interviewed students, parents, veterans, seniors, people whose stories were often ignored. I recognized pieces of myself in all of them, especially in the ones who said their families loved them privately but struggled to stand beside them publicly. That phrase, privately but not publicly, stayed with me. I wrote about it in an article. It resonated more than anything else I had published. Messages poured in. Again, not viral this time, but steady, thoughtful. People thanked me for naming something they had felt but could not explain. My dad read the article. He called me afterward and said, "I think that's me." I did not argue. I did not comfort him. I simply said, "Maybe now you see it too." Months passed. My dad's company downsized. He sold his luxury car. He moved offices. He was humbled in a way success had never done. My mom supported him quietly, the way she always had, but I noticed something different. She stopped defending his choices when it came to me. She stopped making excuses. She let him own his mistakes. One afternoon, she told me she wished she had pushed him harder years ago. She said she thought love meant keeping the peace. I told her sometimes love means disrupting it. My dad started coming to my events, small ones, panel discussions, community talks. He stood in the back at first, then closer, then eventually next to my mom. He did not introduce me as his daughter with hesitation anymore. He said, "This is my daughter Emily. She works here." He said it with a pride that felt new, fragile but real. The first time someone stared at my gate while we walked together, he tensed. I felt it. I said quietly, "Keep walking," and he did. He did not look away, he did not rush me, he matched my pace. Afterward, he said, "That was harder than he expected." I smiled and said, "Welcome to my world." The real test came a year after my graduation, when my nonprofit hosted a large public conference. Hundreds of attendees, cameras, press, the kind of environment my dad used to thrive in and fear at the same time. I was one of the keynote speakers. My name was on the program, my face on the website. The night before the event, my dad called me. He sounded nervous. He asked what time he should arrive. I asked if he was coming. He said yes, without hesitation. The morning of the conference, I stood backstage, adjusting my microphone, my hands shaking, not from fear of speaking, but from the weight of memory. When I walked onto the stage, the lights were bright, the room was full, applause filled the space, and this time, when I looked out into the crowd, my dad was there, sitting in the front row, not hiding, not distracted, standing when others stood, clapping without restraint. I spoke about visibility, about dignity, about the cost of silence. I did not mention him, but I felt him there. After the speech, he hugged me tightly and whispered, "I'm so proud of you." And this time, I believed him. Feeling did not happen all at once. It came in moments, in shared walks, in honest conversations, in mistakes corrected, not erased. My dad still struggled sometimes. He still cared too much about what others thought. But now, when that instinct surfaced, he named it. He did not let it decide for him. A few months later, a young woman approached me after a talk. She had cerebral palsy, too. She said her father refused to attend her school events. She asked me if it ever gets better. I told her the truth. Sometimes people change, sometimes they do not, but your worth does not depend on their readiness. She cried and hugged me tightly. That night, I thought about how far I had come, not because my dad changed, but because I stopped waiting for him to validate my existence. I built a life that stood on its own and invited him into it rather than asking permission to live in it. My dad once told me he missed my graduation because he was afraid of being seen with me. Now he walks beside me, not perfectly, not without fear, but openly, and that difference means everything. The year after the conference was quieter, in a good way. The kind of quiet that comes when things finally settle into place. My life did not suddenly become perfect, but it became solid. I had work that mattered, relationships that felt honest, and a sense of self that no longer needed permission. My dad and I talked more regularly, not every day, not even every week, but when we did, it felt real. He no longer tried to fix me or protect me from being seen. He asked questions, he listened, sometimes he admitted he was still learning. And I learned to accept that growth does not erase harm, but it can create something new if both people show up. One afternoon, he asked if I would come with him to speak at his company. They were hosting a diversity and inclusion event, and someone had suggested inviting me. My first instinct was hesitation, not because I was afraid, but because I knew how much this would challenge him. I asked if he was sure. He said yes without pausing. He said, "I want them to see you the way I see you." Now, the day of the event, we stood in the lobby together. Employees walked past, some glanced, some smiled, some stared. My dad did not rush me. He did not step ahead. He stayed beside me, matching my pace. When it was his turn to introduce me, he did not talk about overcoming adversity or inspiration. He said, "This is my daughter, Emily. She taught me more about courage than anyone I know." And then he stepped back and let me speak. I talked about visibility again, but this time from a place of peace. I talked about how being seen is not about attention, it is about acknowledgement, how hiding someone out of fear hurts more than any stare ever could. After the event, several employees thanked both of us. One man quietly told my dad his own son was disabled, and he had not known how to show pride publicly. My dad listened and said, "I made that mistake. Do not repeat it." That moment meant more to me than any apology ever could. Time continued moving forward as it always does. My mom remained my constant, my anchor, my quiet strength. She once told me watching my dad change felt like watching a man finally meet his daughter after 20 years. I laughed, but I knew what she meant. A few months later, I was invited back to my university to speak at commencement, not as a graduate, but as a guest speaker. The invitation felt surreal. I accepted immediately. When I told my dad, he smiled and asked where he should sit. On the day of the ceremony, the arena felt different this time, familiar but lighter. When my name was announced, the applause was warm, but what mattered more was that when I stepped onto that stage, I did not scan the crowd searching. I already knew he was there. Afterward, we took photos together, not staged, not stiff, just real. And later that night, my dad said something I will never forget. He said, "I used to think protecting you meant keeping you out of sight. Now I know protecting you means standing in full view with you." I did not need to forgive him out loud in that moment. Forgiveness had already happened quietly, through consistency, through effort, through presence. My story did not end with my dad missing my graduation. It continued with him choosing to show up late. Not perfectly, not without regret, but sincerely. And that matters, because life does not always give us the moment we deserve when we expect it. Sometimes it gives us something better: growth, accountability, change. If you are listening to this and you feel unseen by someone you love, know this: your worth is not measured by their readiness to stand beside you. You do not shrink so others feel comfortable. You walk forward at your own pace, and the people who are meant to walk with you will learn to match it. My dad missed my graduation because he was afraid of being seen with me, but today he is no longer afraid, and neither am I.